David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. You recognize this gentleman right here. He was my colleague in arms to talk about all things Bond. David Walliams, welcome back to the show.
We're starting to look quite alike.
This is on purpose. Are you okay with this?
Yeah, you look great, actually. You look very well. Have you had work done?
Yeah, I've had so much work. You know what? I have not. I've had a beard grown. That's the work I've had. But this is like 4 colors.
Yeah, mine is pretty white actually. So I'll probably have to be either dyeing it at some point or shaving it off because I'm going to start looking like Father Christmas.
I wouldn't dare because the gray and silver, that's very in right now.
Okay. I want a beard like Pierce's at the beginning of Die Another Day.
Yes. Yeah. Unruly, but sexy at the same time.
I love that. I thought that was one of the best opening sequences, actually.
I do too.
I thought it was so inventive how they used the credit sequence for storytelling and for passage of time. Because you don't normally, in Bond films, you don't normally get any sense of time passing. Certainly not months or years or anything like that. And so I thought they did that really, really well. And it worked actually well with the track that I know some people didn't like, the Madonna song, but I thought actually in the context of that opening sequence, I thought it worked really well.
I find that with Die Another Day, you get this diversive kind of discussion, but quite frankly, everybody loves the first half, and that opening is so strong.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. So much to it, and Pierce was so fantastic, and is such an amazing ambassador, I think, for the role. He's just such a. Whenever I see him, I smile. Even if I'm just scrolling through Instagram and I see a picture of him, he's got a great sense of humor, very at ease with himself, very at ease with getting older. I mean, he looks amazing.
Oh my gosh,
but he doesn't try and disguise that, does he? And he just kind of gets on with being Pierce Brosnan, which seems like a great thing to be Pierce Brosnan.
And he looks like he's enjoying himself. I don't know if you saw any of the GoldenEye watch along that he did.
Yes.
It was amazing to watch him do that. And, yes, he got flustered, but it was so real and authentic. I loved it.
Yes. I heard a story, though, that when he was filming Die Another Day, I went to the set, actually, because of my friendship with David Arnold. He took me and a friend of ours called Mark Gatiss, who's a brilliantly talented comedian and writer, who actually co-created Sherlock series, amongst other things. So you may know of his work. He's very, very talented guy. And we were chatting to Pierce. He was really nice. I mean, he wouldn't have known who either of us was, but he was like, he met us at the start. Hello, David. Hello, Mark. And then we were chatting for 20 minutes. And when the conversation ended, he was like, really nice to meet you, David. Really nice to meet you, Mark. And it was like, oh, great. And then he was whistling the Bond theme to David Arnold.
What?
And then anyway, but there was a funny story because Pierce was always very, very professional and very, not one of those actors ever to keep anyone waiting. But apparently the one day where there was the standoff was the day when Madonna was on set, because Madonna was determined to be the last person to come onto the set. Because sometimes there's a hierarchy in movies where the bigger star you are, it's like you only arrive when everything's ready for you to begin. And obviously Madonna, being Madonna, wanted it to be Madonna as the last person, but also he's James Bond. So if there's one person who should walk onto the set last of James Bond, and apparently it was the two of them. It was like, oh, come on, someone's got to get there first. There's all those funny stories, aren't there, about people's trailers being, people measuring how far they are from the set and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Pierce was very, very loved, and I've met him a few times. He was so charming to me. And did I tell you the story? I met him at a friend's wedding, and I was chatting to him, and I couldn't believe I was, chatting to James Bond. And he doesn't disappoint because he's actually quite a lot like James Bond. And then a couple of days later, I was on a date in Soho House, this bar in London with this girl, and he was in there, and he was like, "Oh, hi, David, how are you?" And I was on a date with this girl, and this girl was like, "This is James Bond." She said hello to you. I was like, yeah. I mean, I don't really know him that well at all, but he's just so charming and friendly.
You couldn't ask for a better wingman than to actually have James Bond say hello to you in front of a date.
No, but I think he's not trying. I don't think he's trying to be charming. I just think he's naturally
Yeah.
incredibly charming and so good-natured, and he's got a great sense of humor about himself, and he comes over very well in Everything or Nothing, doesn't he? Because he has quite, it's quite a sad end to his run as Bond, wasn't it? I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. He was great. The audience loved him. He, made billions for MGM and everybody, but at the same time, it was like, it ended without him wanting it to end, which is not how you'd want to go out if you were a Bond. Would you want to know it's your last one in a way, wouldn't you?
But he's such a gentleman. I mean, he's never trashed the franchise or the people or Barbara or Michael. If anything, he just says, yeah, this is what happened. And then we said goodbye, and that was it. There was a certain cold finality to it, but that's, I think, the harsh it ever got.
Yeah, and I think that is the film business, isn't it? And it kind of, and what now we look back at, the way those films changed, it felt like it was a necessary change, but at the same time, I guess in a way it was Barbara and Michael being ahead of the curve, because the audience would have very happily had another Pierce Brosnan movie, maybe another few Pierce Brosnan movies, but they knew, I think in the way they talked about it, instinctively they knew they had to do something new, they had to reinvent things after 9/11, and that's why they come up with Casino Royale, which I'm looking at some lists that were published today and yesterday about Bond aficionados' favorite Bond movies.
Yes.
So what do you make of these lists? People are doing their top 5 movies.
I've got to respect them. There's a lot of people I think and I know, but I was surprised that GoldenEye hit number 1. It was Casino Royale number 2, and GoldenEye was number 1. I can't say I agree with all of them. I mean, quite frankly, and then you had some real favorites like From Russia with Love that didn't hit as high as I thought. So really subjective.
Well, yeah, it's subjective, isn't it? And in a way, it's good we all have our different favorites. That's a lot. What do you got there? Soup or something?
No, this is pressed carrot juice and fresh ginger.
Blimey. What are you
It's amazing.
Iron Man after this or something like that?
No, this is just I don't drink it all the time, but it's such an energy boost. It's amazing because I only drink I'm down to 1 cup of coffee a day.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yes, I know, but I think what's good is that we don't all agree on what is the best movie, because if we all agreed, it would be like, well, there'd be a definite hierarchy of the movies and there'd be kind of no discussion. But it actually means that there's so many great movies that even people who are fanatical will all pick different ones. I guess it's like Beatles albums or something, isn't it? It's like very hard to define which is the best one, because there's at least half a dozen that you could easily say that's the greatest achievement.
Absolutely.
And I was pleased though to see lots of more recent Bond movies top of the list, because you would hate to think that all the ones that people loved had been made 40, 50 years ago, and actually it's not the case, is it? Ones made in the last decade or so are higher on the list. Skyfall isn't higher.
Yeah, but it was pretty decent. I think it was at least in the top 10. And it's so interesting. I've always tell people, especially non-Bond fans, a Bond film is like sex and pizza, that even when it's bad, it's still good. So, you can't, I'd rather watch the worst Bond film than, the best of a lot of other things. Yeah.
And also I always think a Bond film that even you might not entirely enjoy every aspect of it, there's still some brilliant things in it. Yes. There'll still be an incredible action sequence. There'll be a brilliant score. There'll be some brilliant performances, whatever it is. So I don't think there's any Bond movies you can write off.
100%.
Maybe the 60s Casino Royale is quite hard going.
It is. On my third try, I did get through the whole thing, but not well.
No, but I think it was such a disastrous experience for those people making the movie. Because I'm a big Peter Sellers fan, so I read a few biographies of him, and I think he basically couldn't find a way to make it funny. He couldn't find a way to play James Bond and make him funny. Yeah. And I think then he he just left the movie at one stage, and so that's when David Niven pops in. So basically, the film just makes no sense whatsoever. But then you have Orson Welles as Le Chiffre, and you go, oh, couldn't we have Le Chiffre in like an official Bond movie? And couldn't we also maybe have Look of Love.
Oh yeah.
You know, sung by Dusty Springfield, Hal David and Burt Bacharach. Couldn't we have that as
Yes.
a Bond song? It's such an incredible song.
That's interesting.
And
So take
their
certain
anthem is
aspects.
incredible.
And I actually thought, age aside, maybe David Nivens was great. I
Mm.
thought he was fun and everything. It was the cowboys and the flying Russian or the roulette tables at the end that sort of did me in.
Yeah, well, there's a certain sort of 60s spoofy sort of movie where just things go bonkers.
Yeah.
What's New Pussycat is a bit like that as well. It's kind of like 60s and The Party, Blake Edwards movie. It's a bit like just like surreal stuff just happens and there's no real sense to it. And people are running around and there's lots of silly music and maybe custard pies and things like that. And then the film just ends. And you go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's how films used to end in the 1960s. But they can still be rather charming.
By the way, I've got, since we jumped right into it without any ado, which is great. I had a lot of questions from people last time. That people wanted to know, especially during a pandemic like this, what are some of your Bond distractions that you have? And first of all, people think a day in the life of David Walliams is you get up and three people bathe you, and then you walk in a cashmere robe and right. There's only two people that bathe you. You're cutting back clearly.
Um, the day involves me persuading my son that he really should watch a Bond movie with me later that day,
Ooh.
because we're on. I'm homeschooling my son, who's 7.5. So we have like we normally would only have a movie night at the weekend, but we can have them, during the week too. But of course, if you're 7.5, there's all the Marvel movies and all that kind of stuff. But it's trying to sort of move him more towards Bond. But he has an unusual favorite Bond movie, which is Live and Let Die. He loves Live and Let Die. He loves the forward momentum of it, the spookiness of it, the grittiness of it. He loves the song as well and likes to dance around to that. So he's really into that. And he often asks if Jaws is in the Bond movie. So he'll want to watch it. He likes to watch Spy Love Me and Moonraker because Jaws is in those ones. But obviously kids, they like their Marvel movies as well, don't they? And so it's trying to sometimes steer them away from them and into Bond.
Well, I have to ask the natural question as a father who has a son who introduced his son to James Bond films. What was the first movie you contemplated and said, right, this is the first one that my son needs to see?
Well, what I did was I was with my two nephews as well, who are just a little bit older than my son. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to show them some bits from The Spy Who Loved Me, because they're not going to understand the talky bits. So this was my first Bond movie at the cinema. And I thought, I'm going to show them the action sequences. And they were all really hooked. They all loved the shark in the pool, the shark's battle with Jaws. They love that. Obviously, they love the car going off the jetty, and it's the sea. They love the ski chase.
Of course.
They love the fight in Giza, which is where between Jaws and Bond and Agent Triple X. They basically liked it all. So we found all the really fun bits and not too many of the talky bits. And they were into it. So I sort of showed them a sort of shortened version because I was so keen to get them into James Bond. And then my nephews are really, really into it. And I took them and my son to the set of the last one, which was brilliant. So they had an amazing time and we got to hang out with Daniel and everything. I think I told you about that last time. And from then we watched Moonraker, which is a kind of companion piece, isn't it, really, to Spy Love Me? Same director, Jaws makes a return, obviously, Roger's back and everything. So we started off with those and then we went on to Live and Let Die. So I think that's a good collection. And he's seen bits of other ones as well. But
Okay.
I think it'll be a while till we watch like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, because I think that is one. I think you just want to watch maybe when you're about 12 or something like that. I think because it's got a lot of heart and emotion, and even though the action sequences are spectacular, I think it's not the cartoony world so much as some of the Roger ones, which are a little bit more child friendly.
Yeah. Is it easier? Because I mean, I agree with you in the sense that when my son was young, and I think he was also your son's age, give or take. I think the first one was Moonraker and then Octopussy, which Octopussy Today is his favorite movie. Today. You've shown only Roger Moore so far. Would it be harder to show him kind of the Daniel Craig movies? Is that for when he's 10 or 11?
We have watched some parts of the Daniel Craig movies as well. So we have watched Spectre and Skyfall, but we haven't seen Casino Royale or Quantum of Solace in entirety. Again, I
Right.
often show him bits because I think he's more likely to be interested in a sort of, an action sequence rather than a talky bit. But yeah, we did watch some of the Daniel ones because I knew we were going to go and meet Daniel on the set, and I thought if he's going to turn up and expect it to see Roger Moore, he's not going to understand who Daniel Craig is. But at one stage, I was saying, "Oh, we're going to meet Daniel Craig now," and my son was going, "I don't even know who Daniel Craig is," and it was like, "No, sorry, he's James Bond." Because obviously, when you're a kid, you don't really necessarily know that there's someone who is Iron Man, whose name
Right.
isn't Iron Man, and so it was quite funny. But yeah, so I'm kind of getting him into it. But you've got to be careful, haven't you? Because you can put children off things by introducing them to too young, or just trying to push them into something. They like to make their own choices. But the one great thing is there's so many great Bond toys out there. So we've got Scale Xtrix, Track, we've got
Nice.
all the vehicles, and so we spent a lot of time playing with them. And he loves the Lotus Esprit, and he loves also the Aston Martin DB5. So he's definitely into the cars and some of the gadgets. And there's also a brilliant museum which hasn't been open for a while in London, but it's the London Film Museum, which is hold the Bond in Motion exhibition, which we've been to many times as well. So that's a great introduction for
It
kids as well.
unfortunately closed about a week or so ago.
Yeah, we used to go there all the time. I mean, I've taken
Yeah.
him there about 10 times,
Oh my gosh.
more
Yeah.
because I want to go than he wants to go. But to be up that close to all the cars is fantastic for kids.
That's amazing. I mean, there's a discussion right now going on. Nobody knows what No Time to Die is going to look like, feel like, other than the trailers. But they've said that the Daniel Craig films have a certain seriousness to them that some of the older ones didn't, especially Roger Moore. And people say when it comes to Bond 26, it'd be great to have fun again. Just maybe not as angsty. I mean, do you feel, especially for the younger generation, like, in a couple of years when your son watches Bond 26, do you think he's going to be hoping for something a little bit more frivolous?
Well, Edgar Wright, who's a good pal of mine, who's a brilliant film director who directed Baby Driver, amongst other great things, he says Bond is a bit like you have dark chocolate and you have milk chocolate. So Sean Connery's dark chocolate, Roger Moore's milk chocolate, and then he says, yeah, like Pierce Brosnan was milk chocolate, and then Daniel Craig is dark chocolate. So he seems to think we're
Hmm.
due some milk chocolate, which is obviously milk chocolate's a bit more fun than dark chocolate, isn't it? Really, it's
It
not
can
quite,
be.
it's not quite as good for you, but
Right.
it's more fun. I think it could go in that direction. My personal feeling is, if I was running the show, which I'm not, but I think Bond is often at its best when it's given over to a really great filmmaker with a vision. Be it Sam Mendes, be it Lewis Gilbert, whoever. And I think a lot of the films are distinguished by being directed, authored by really talented people. And I'd have thought, if you, for example, if they said, "Oh, Christopher Nolan, we want you to come and do 3 Bond movies," well, you're going to trust Christopher Nolan to cast it, to have a vision of it, to have a feel of it, and everything, and reinvent it in his way. And I think it would be interesting to be given over to a filmmaker with a vision,
Hmm.
to create a new era in that way that Batman has a sort of Tim Burton era, doesn't it, and has a Christopher Nolan era, and so I kind of think, and I think definitely, I'd love to have seen Sam Mendes do more. I thought he did a brilliant job,
Did.
and he really understood how to use uh, the cast, and I mean, because he really cast, Moneypenny and Q, and also by the time you get to Spectre, he's using them in a big way, isn't he? And and Ben Whishaw is such a brilliant actor.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's a completely different. When I heard he was Q, I knew he was a great actor. But I was like, hang on, no, Q, he's not young, he's not this. But they found a brilliant way of doing it, didn't they? And so Sam, I'm sure, brought a lot of his own great ideas, because he's such a brilliant theatre director and such a brilliant film director. So I hope that they partner up with someone who, like a Christopher Nolan, who's got a vision, who wants to do something with it that's a bit different, so it has a feel, it has a it gets reinvented in some way. But I don't know who that is. I mean, I'd love it to be Edgar Wright, who's a genius.
He is. I love his work.
I mean, I think he would probably rather do like a milk chocolate Bond, because he's got a lightness of touch to to a lot of his work. He's done lots of comedies and things, but someone like that who's got a vision. I mean, there's always this talk of this Tarantino Bond movie. Do you know about this?
Oh yeah, when he was pitching it to Pierce Brosnan. Yeah.
Yeah, but also apparently there was a version where he was pitching Daniel Day-Lewis playing Bond. In a 50 to set Casino Royale in the 50s, and do a one-off with Daniel Day-Lewis as James Bond, which would have been extraordinary.
That's interesting. I've never thought of him as James Bond.
No, I mean, obviously, he's had a long career, and he Daniel Day-Lewis, I remember when he first started, was something of a heartthrob, but he's very angsty, isn't he? He's not what you necessarily associate with all the James Bonds, but obviously he's a brilliant actor and can do anything. Obviously, it's not going to happen now, but it's an intriguing another universe, isn't there? Where there is a version of Casino Royale set at the time with Daniel Day-Lewis in it that Quentin Tarantino has directed.
Selfishly, I would have loved to have seen that.
Do you know the Steven Spielberg story as well? So,
is this where he didn't think he was going to have enough creative rights and control, and he stepped away?
The story that, and I'm sure she won't mind me telling because it's quite a sweet story, is that before Steven Spielberg had directed Jaws, so he'd only just done 2 movies then, hasn't he? Sugarland Express and Jewel as well. I think he'd probably only just done those movies. And he met Cubby Broccoli and he said, I really want to direct a Bond movie. And Cubby Broccoli went, you're just a kid. I mean, he probably was in his 20s then. You can't direct a Bond movie. And then, of course, Steven Spielberg went on to direct Jaws, and then, of course, he had that amazing run where he did, E.T., Close Encounters, Raise the Star, all of that, all these iconic movies. And many years later, Steven Spielberg won all the Oscars for Schindler's List, and Cubby Broccoli, being gentleman he is, wrote a letter of congratulations to Steven Spielberg, and Steven Spielberg wrote back, "Now can I direct a Bond movie?" Which I think is such a wonderful, touching story, isn't it? Because it shows it's still somehow in Spielberg's mindset, actually, that kind of still, rankles with him that he still never got to do it. And
so funny.
And it's just so sweet, isn't it? Cubby writing a letter to congratulate, a fellow filmmaker like that. It was a very, 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 very sweet story. But yeah, I mean, it's finding. There's so many great filmmakers out there with a vision, like Denis Villeneuve or something. It's finding someone, I think, who wants to take it on, wants to reinvent it. My dogs are barking.
Somebody at the door?
They were barking about nothing at all.
As they should. They're dogs. By the way, I like your mug. I recognize it completely. Yeah.
To know mug, yeah.
Those are fun. By the way, I mean, a total cliche question, since you're talking about filmmakers, do you have a favorite potential Bond actor for Bond 26?
No, I can't really figure it out, actually, because it's getting someone at exactly the right moment in their career and age, isn't it? Where they've just done some great, exciting work. They're not too associated with another role already. Yeah. Because people talk about Henry Cavill, who could be great as Bond, but obviously he's already been Superman, and so you know, that might for some people go, well, can you be Superman and James Bond? I don't know. For some
I
people,
mean, Indiana Jones was Han Solo and Indiana
yeah,
Jones. I mean,
it's true. Actually, it's true. But they were pretty different characters, actually, weren't they?
they were.
Yeah. So I don't really know. I can't really figure it out who it can be. But I mean, you want someone. I mean, Daniel was a highly respected actor that I'd seen on stage a lot of times. He'd done some incredible TV work. He'd done some big film roles, but he was not like, you know, like a mega movie star. So sometimes we often think about people who are already mega movie stars, and in a way, sometimes it's better if you're not a mega movie star. Maybe you've made your name on television or something. But no, I can't really figure out who it can be. But I think Daniel is a really tough act to follow.
Yes.
Because I think most of us would love to see him do more. I mean, I know he's now in his 50s, but he looks great.
He looks great.
He's really kind of relaxed into the role. He's brought more humor as he's gone along. He's kind of calling time on it, even though I don't get the sense that the public want him to call time on it. You know, it's not like anyone's going, he's too old for this now. He looks great. He's totally into the role. He's now got a huge career outside of Bond, and we just gladly see more and more of him. But it's just part of his whole mystique, isn't it? That he just is like, no, I know when the time is right, and I'm now walking away from it. Yeah. But incredible. We think it's now as long between Bond movies, isn't it, as it was between License to Kill and GoldenEye.
We're 3 to 4 months away from hitting the record. It's not a record that somebody wants to hit, obviously, but I agree with you with Daniel Craig. I remember the last time it was delayed. It's even funny to even say that. And he was on Saturday Night Live. And I just looked at him and I'm like, what the actual F? I mean, he's my age. He looked amazing. And then he did these model shots with his shirt off. And I'm like, what's going on here? He's never looked better.
He's just getting better and better and better. And I think he seems more relaxed. Because I mean, my sense is that he was never someone who got into acting to become famous or anything like that. I think he's just like a brilliant actor who happens to also be really good looking, and then he became a superstar because of Bond. But I don't think that was his aim. I think maybe he sort of struggled a little bit with becoming that famous, because I mean, you're so famous that there's nowhere you can go, because Bond is famous everywhere in the world. So that's that can be a difficult thing to live with, because at some point you're going to want to turn it off and just be ignored for 5 minutes. But I guess it doesn't happen for him. But anyway, he feels like he's very at home in the role and very at peace with being him. And so yes, I'd love him to continue, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I don't know who it can be, but I'm trying to think. It's basically, you're kind of thinking now, someone who's probably in their sort of late 20s, who's done some great work, who's an exciting actor, who's got kind of a bit of a rough edge to them, perhaps.
Yeah.
It is so hard to call it.
I've often thought that sometimes, and this complicates everything, of course, there's been so much discussion about possibly the franchise owners currently selling off the franchise. And there's been, talks and discussions, all rumors, of course, nothing substantiated. But, if somebody like an Apple or a Netflix or somebody like that, even Amazon, was to purchase the franchise, I would imagine they wouldn't mind somebody commercial like Henry Cavill, for example, as opposed to, I think if they continue, the family continues to own it, they're going to want to get a relative unknown, I would think.
Yeah, there's also that. I think what could happen if it was sold is that suddenly people want to exploit it in all media in the way that they, like Star Wars. You suddenly have a lot more Star Wars. You've got prequels, you've got sequels, you've got cartoon series, you've got live action series, and sometimes, there can be too much of something. And it doesn't feel as special anymore. And the thing about Bond is it's always been special. It's never been sold out, has it, into something naff. Like there's never been like silly spin-offs and things like that. It's always kept in this very prestigious place, which is why I'm glad actually they are waiting for cinemas to reopen for the film to actually come out, because I know there's lots of discussion of people saying, oh, they should bring it on streaming. No, it's Bond. It's the crown jewels, certainly of the British film industry, and I'd say the film industry in the world as well. And also, maybe it's going to save cinema, because if this movie comes out at the right time, when it's safe for everyone to go back to the cinema, this could be the movie that saves the cinema industry, because people are going to so want to go back to the cinema. And the great thing about a Bond film is you sort of know it, you're going to get something that you really love. You'll know it's going to be put together in a different way than last time, but basically, you're going to have a great experience. There's no doubt, is there?
Yeah.
Bond film never disappoints.
I have a quick story about that, because I'm in the pharmaceutical arena for my vocation, and one of the things that I heard a lot of intensivist doctors, internists who were studying the pandemic, they said that during the 1900s, when we had the other pandemic about 100 years ago, there was something that happened when the pandemic lifted and neutralized back then that they think is going to happen now, and that is you had the Roaring Twenties. And the Roaring Twenties happened because people were isolated and said, something, we're going to get dressed up to have a cup of coffee. We're going to go out dancing and be loud, and we want to be with people. So the pendulum swung and the shift. And I think Bond could be the movie catalyst to that. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, and I think we're going to want something which is a fantasy as well, aren't we? We're going to want to see something that's going to, be escapist, going to transport us to another world. So I know it's very, very hard on the producers and the film companies to be doing the right thing, but I do think my instincts tell me that they are doing the right thing. It must be horrible to be running a cinema chain right now, but I do think if you put this on streaming now, that will kill cinemas forever.
Yeah.
Because then there'll just be like no expectation of any big movie going into cinemas, and people's habits will change too much.
What do you feel about the mixed model, the Wonder Woman 84 model, the in theaters and on streaming?
Well, it didn't interest me enough for me to watch it. So it's hard for me to say.
You were the lucky one.
I know. I mean, I saw the first one. I enjoyed it. I personally, I think that I love the trip to the cinema, and especially, taking your family, taking my son, whatever. It's like a wonderful day out, and I think there's something psychological for me about sitting in the cinema, and these images are projected from behind your head, and it's basically like you're watching your own dream. I know that sounds perhaps a bit pretentious, but I think there is something about cinema that, however big a television you have at home, it's just never going to be the same. Yeah. And also sharing an experience. My friend Edgar Wright's just done this amazing piece in Empire magazine where he's asked filmmakers to name these moments when you're sat in the cinema and everyone's experiencing the same thing at the same time. Like for example, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the swordsman goes to attack Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones is just tired out and just pulls out his gun and shoots him. And even though, if you sort of analysed it, it's a bit of a dark moment, but everyone cheered when they saw it in the cinema, didn't they? Because it was so witty. Yeah. And we've never seen a moment like that. And so he was talking about all these very special moments. Of course, Bond movies are full of them, not least, Spy Who Loved Me, skiing off the side of the cliff, and the Union Jack parachute opening. And I remember sitting this at my age 6 and everyone applauding then. And so he's done a piece about cinema and how important the communal experience of watching a movie together. And I think Bond is definitely one of those communal experience movies, because there are often cheers, aren't there, where you see the Aston Martin DB5, you cheer, you hear the Bond music, you cheer Bond, I don't know, he puts on his dinner suit and, women whoop or something like that. I seem to remember in Casino Royale when you saw Daniel looking at himself in the mirror for the first time in his dinner jacket, women were whooping because he looked so sexy. And so I think it's super important it's seen in the cinemas. I'm not sure. I think Wonder Woman, from what I understand, is that they were trying to launch this streaming service, and they didn't really expect it to make the film to make money. It just seemed like a shame, really, because the film has probably not really been seen by many people in the way it was intended.
I agree.
I'm a real snob about the cinema. Like, I'm a member of the British Film Institute in London, where you can go and see old movies. And so if I haven't seen a movie, even though I might be desperate to see it, like a Fellini movie or something, I'll wait until it's on, because I feel like I won't have properly seen it unless I've seen it, especially films that were really intended for the cinema. So I mean, films that are made before, you know, television was as big as it is now. And I feel like, so I'm a bit of a snob about it. So I'd really hate the idea that Bond premiered on television. I think it's bigger than that. And also, I just don't think the maths works out, because these films are so expensive now.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they spent on No Time to Die, but it's probably 400, 500 million.
I think I think it's 350, 375, something like that.
That's a lot of money.
Insanity.
I wouldn't have thought you could make your money back unless it's on the cinema. But I think they just, you know, I just really hope they hold their nerve, and we will all go back to cinema. I will happily go and see it 3 or 4 times in the cinema, because I like nothing more than taking different groups. You know, I'll take my son, and I'll take my friends, I'm going to take my mum, or, you know, go a few times. And there's nothing better than that, is there really? You know, I'll happily go 2 or 3 times in a week.
I do the same thing, and I think there's a certain pride of ownership of a Bond film, even though certainly we don't own the franchise. But you take people there to show it off and go, you know, look at this, look at what I feel like I have ownership of. But when you talked about the projection, I have to tell you something. In marketing terms, there's an actual term called projection, which is basically the ability for an ad campaign or a television commercial to take somebody and transport them and put them into that brand moment or that experience. And it creates an impact, obviously. So they got that from the cinema, that you could project yourself behind and into the movie. And it's a nostalgic thing as well. So why would you give that up? I mean, if Bond is a nostalgic animal, I'm with you. I 100% want to see it in a theater, so much that I'll wait. Like, if they want to go to 2022 first quarter, I'm actually okay with that. Let's hope it doesn't happen, but.
Yeah, well, we're getting near to 60 years of James Bond, aren't we?
We are.
So it might make sense. I think the complex thing about the pandemic is that, you know, in the UK at the moment, we have some good news, because a lot of people are getting their vaccines. And so there's some optimism that life will go back to normal in, you know, perhaps in the space of months rather than years. But obviously, to release a movie like Bond, you need the entire world to be on the same page, don't you? You can't be just parts of Europe are good and other parts are not, or, you know, you can't have, cinemas have got to be open everywhere in the world for this movie to really take off. So we will see. But Bond is always worth waiting for. So we've just got to hold on tight. And also, I think Daniel really deserves, if it really is going to be his last one, he really deserves his swan song, doesn't he? He really deserves it to, you know, be seen in the best way possible, and for there to be as much fuss about it as possible.
I agree. By the way, I would be absolutely remiss, because of the theme of my channel being around Bond brands and the Bond lifestyle and things like that, to talk about something with you, is that you really do gravitate to the Bond lifestyle, whether it's the brands or your mug that you're drinking out of. You've done specials about James Bond where you put yourself into those moments in a lot of different ways. You were just quoted in a magazine article that you would love to write, you know, for Bond. I mean, but this Bond lifestyle, I mean, how does it manifest itself for you? It can't just be about the clothes and the cars.
Well, no, the thing about Bond is he's a bit of a snob, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's like listening to the Beatles without earmuffs. He doesn't even.
End quote.
He didn't even like the Beatles. In fact, we never really find out what music he likes, do we? Do we ever really find out what music he likes?
I don't remember him putting on music.
No. It'd be slightly strange, wouldn't it? Really, because go home and put on a record. So for me, it's about sort of wanting the best of things, isn't it? You know, so he you know, he won't put, you know, the best suits, the best shirts, the best shoes, the best cars, the best drinks. He wants the best of everything, which is why I think they have to be careful when they are doing kind of tie-ins, merchandise tie-ins with the movies, to make sure that he's staying with the brands that are right. Because obviously, if he just started sort of advertising yogurt or something like that, he just wouldn't sort of be James Bond anymore, would he? It needs
Yeah.
to be, you know, the right kind of vodka and everything. And so for me, it's always intriguing to see, oh, right, okay, so, you know, you're looking at Daniel's clothes and you're thinking, okay, Tom Ford, you know, is that something?
Yeah.
Is there something is there something Tom Ford I could get? And I mean, Tom Ford dressed Bond amazingly.
Oh, unbelievable.
He's never looked better, really, is he? I mean, I know it's not all Tom Ford, but a lot of it is, isn't it? And he looks incredible. I mean, the black overcoat and the sunglasses that he wears at the funeral
Yeah.
at the beginning of Spectre. Are those sunglasses Tom Ford glasses?
Those are, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, he just looks immaculate and exquisite in like every scene. And Daniel manages to wear it in such a way that you think he's still getting his hands dirty.
Mm.
He doesn't look too, even though he looks immaculate at the same time, he can spring into action. But yeah, so for me, it's about that. And also some of the retro brands, isn't it? Like Dougie Hayward, who made a lot of Roger's clothes. Like there's a beautiful overcoat that Roger wears in the New York scenes at the beginning of Live and Let Die.
Yes.
Which is absolutely...
It's like a Crombie coat. It's got like the velvet here and everything.
Yeah. And I think that was made from Dougie Hayward, was a tailor. Dougie Hayward, I think, makes a brief appearance in The Italian Job.
Oh.
He made a lot of clothes for sort of people in that era, Michael Caine, sort of 60s and 70s. And so, yeah, I'm really into the clothes and most of the cars. The thing, we've never had a great sense of where Bond lives, have we? We've seen where he lives a few times, but it's...
We have, yes. What, Spectre, Live and Let Die? We see that.
I like, in Live and Let Die, I rather like his flat.
I love it.
Yeah, and I actually love that yellow bathrobe that he's got.
It's coming. There's a brand who's replicating it, and the pajamas and the slippers.
Which brand?
It's Turnbull and Asser.
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's exciting, because I thought it was about time someone did that, because a yellow bathrobe might not work, but it looks great in that movie. And it's just fun, isn't it? It's fun, and it's also like they're the kind of movies that you'd like to step into if you could. Like, I always thought, if I was like Jeff Bezos, billionaire, I would have every single Bond car lined up in the garage, including like the Citroen 2CV, and you know, every car he ever drove. I'd have every outfit from every movie.
Yes.
So I'd have the safari suits, I'd have the kilts, I'd have the naval uniforms, everything, and I would just spend all day pretending to be James Bond, dressing up as him, driving the cars, eating the food, all that kind of thing. I just pretending to be him all day. It was a slightly tragic life. I would enjoy it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think this is why you and I have gotten along so well for so long, because that's my fantasy too. I mean, it's, you know, there's a great line in Pierce Brosnan's Tomorrow Never Die, which I know you and I have so much heart for, whether people do or not. We love it. But there's a great line where Michelle Yeoh says, you know, comes from, you know, growing up in the streets, and he goes, well, you know, that comes from not growing up at all. And it's that whole charm of like never losing your youth, you know, the excitement, the wonder of everything. And I know for me, you know, when I wear a Bond outfit or clothing, or I have a Bond watch on, it's an invisible moment. Nobody in the world knows. You know, it's like, I guess, you know, lingerie for a woman. Nobody knows what's going on, but I do. And it creates this wonderful mind escape. I love it.
Yeah, it's like you're living a bit of a fantasy. I've had that where I've worn my like, Bond cufflinks or something like that. And I sort of think in my head, and even though I'm just taking my mum out for dinner, but at any moment I might be called into action, and I might get a message from M that, you know, I need to report for duty or something like that, or there's been some kind of attack and I need to spring into action, or, you know, it's just, what it is I think it's like Bond is like, there's another much more exciting world sort of going on, sort of parallel to ours, isn't there? It's like the normal world exists, but there's another world that most people don't know about, which is, you know, it's not universal exports. You go in and it's really MI6. And so when you do something like wear a Bond watch or cufflinks or bow tie, whatever, it's like you're just kind of poised, aren't you? Ready to go into the Bond world. And I guess it's about never really losing that sense of play. Yeah. And as somebody who writes books and scripts and things, I mean, I acts and does comedy, is like, I feel like I've never had to quite grow up. And you're right, being sort of playing at James Bond is like never quite growing up as well, isn't it? And that's part of the fun of it.
You've got your mind straight. You're fine. So I have a pitch for you. Now I want you to consider it. I want you to contemplate it a little bit, but it's a fantasy of mine, but I can imagine a Zoom call very much like this, with you as the MC and the host, and you're surrounded by different alumni, actors and directors, producers from, pick any of the James Bond films. You can even do a whole series of this. I mean, is that something that you could see yourself doing?
I would love to do that. Yeah, I could think of nothing better, actually. Yeah, I mean, it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, to ask direct questions to people about all the things you're obsessed by. The thing is, I think sometimes super fans know more about the films than the people in them, because the people in them, they make them and, you know, they enjoy them, and then they're on to the next thing.
Right.
And so yeah, I suppose if we're pitching the questions right, it would be exciting. I just think the super fans have often got really specific questions that to the participants are sometimes a bit boring. And I remember interviewing Roger Moore and asking him, "Oh, do you remember the last scene you ever filmed as James Bond?" And he went, "No." And I thought, God, I would have thought it would have been a major, memory for him, but it wasn't. It was a job, and he finished that. He'd probably thinking, well, what am I doing next? I'm going on holiday next week or something like that. But he wasn't really thinking, oh, this is the end of an era. I think for Daniel, maybe there was perhaps a greater sense of it.
Right.
Because they released a picture, didn't they, at the end of shooting, with Daniel and the director together, and it seemed like, I don't know, it just felt like it was almost like Daniel saying, "Well, that's it, goodbye."
Yeah, it did look like that.
What an amazing thing to go on a high, though. I know the movie's not been seen yet, but incredible, isn't it, to sort of leave a role behind before people want you to leave it behind.
It's absolutely amazing. And I think that's why it has so much gravitas for all of us. It feels big, it's not just for him, it's for the Bond fans. We've seen him through this journey.
Isn't the running time, make it the longest Bond movie?
It is.
By how long? What is the running time?
2 hours and 54 minutes, something like that. Nearly 3 hours.
We're getting a sort of the Lawrence of Arabia of Bond movies.
It's good value for your money.
Well, yes, but I do think when they are on the longer side, because Casino Royale is on the longer side, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And is On Her Majesty's the longest Bond movie apart from No Time to Die?
I think it might be.
And then is it Casino Royale?
They'll correct us in the comments, trust me. But then I think Casino Royale is very, very close to that. I mean,
that extra time. You think about both of those movies, they tell really emotional stories.
Yeah.
And there's time for there to be real character development, not just for Bond, but for the other characters too, and for us to go on an emotional journey. So, if that's what No Time to Die is aiming to do, then that's very exciting.
And you've talked to me about this before also, that those two movies, you quite like them because they did something different. Bond falls in love, gets married. Next one, Bond falls in love. And there looks like from the trailers even, there is some relationship connection here.
That would be very, very exciting. Well, you've got a brilliant cast. I mean, Ana de Armas and Léa Seydoux. You've got two incredible actresses at the absolute top of the game. So that is very exciting. I mean, I've no idea what happens in the story, but I'm very intrigued, and I'm sure Daniel will want something to happen that's never happened before in Bond movies. I mean, that's something you feel like has happened quite a lot on his watch, haven't we? We've seen, M die. We've seen, Eva Green's character die, Vesper in Casino Royale, which is a very, very untypical thing to happen in a Bond movie, isn't it? To have that kind of downbeat ending. And then we've also had this idea of the continuity, which the movies that has never really been developed in the way it has. So I'm
True.
sure there's going to be some really rewarding things for the fans.
And there's a big promise from a marketing standpoint, because one of the trailers actually comes right out and says, this will change everything.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's big.
We've got to wait, but it's always worth waiting for James Bond. It's just, it feels like the great thing about James Bond is, whatever's happening in the world and whatever might be happening in your life, it never lets you down. It's always there, and it's always going to give you pleasure. And I know for some people it's football, because I've got friends who are like, whatever's happening in their life, they can, stop worrying about it and worry what's going to happen on the football pitch. For me, it's James Bond. So it's like revisiting an old friend. It's like,
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like whatever's happening, it's like, oh, well, I've always got that box set of James Bond movies. So even if I've had the worst day ever, whatever's happened, for 2 hours or so, I can go into the magical world of James Bond and lose myself, and I'll be a lot happier.
It's a warm blanket. It's like a whoopee. You just want to.
Yeah. And it never lets you down, because the quality has never gone off. There's always been a standard, and that can't be said for many film franchises. If you think about how brilliantly the Jaws franchise started, it starts with one of the best movies ever made. By the time, I'm not trying to do down on the people who are in the sequels, but it got worse. Every movie got worse than the last one.
Yeah.
Bond, it's like, it sort of took a while to get going, and then there's all these different peaks to it, and so it's just this most magic thing. How can you keep something of this kind of quality for nearly 60 years? But they've done it at one family.
It's amazing.
It's an extraordinary thing.
My greatest wish is that when we have these discussions, the next one, or at least one in general, will be in October in person.
That would be very nice, yeah. And we can hang out and do some Bond. We can visit some Bond haunts, and we can. I'd also like to think if we could get a screening room and get some Bond fans together and watch an old movie. Maybe we'll watch Dr. No, and then watch No Time to Die. Maybe something like
I love it. The bookends.
Yeah. So, what Bond movie are you going to watch tonight?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll tell you what, I probably won't watch one tonight, but I will watch one tomorrow.
What are you going to watch?
Yeah, that is the right question. I've been doing these debates with another YouTuber, the other YouTuber that you like, Calvin Dyson.
Yeah, I like
that's
him.
like, yeah. And we just did a You Only Live Twice one, which was a good debate. But I'm probably going to watch a Pierce Brosnan film, and believe it or not, I think it's going to be Die Another Day.
Good for you.
Do you want to know why?
Yes.
I'm happy to tell you. I'm actually doing a shaving video using the exact correct electric razor, and I think it's just going to rip my face up. The whole scene when he goes in there and he looks like $1 million after the beard that you covet. So this will be research.
All right. Okay. Research for that. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
What about you? Are you seeing a film tonight?
What Bond will I like to watch tonight? I'm quite in the mood for Casino Royale, actually, I think.
Oh.
Because I'm never not in the mood for Casino Royale.
Yes.
There's something about it. Because it's sort of, it's probably the boldest new beginning for any book. Because in a way, it's like there's never been a Bond movie before it, isn't it, when you see it?
Yeah. That's so true.
It's sort of the boldest reinvention. So I'll watch that. But also, I just love all the cast in that. I just think it's such a powerful film. I love this David Arnold score. I love Eva Green. I just crazy about her. So I'd like to watch that. And I do think films with sad endings you often want to return to. So
it is.
I'd pretty like to watch that. But I'm often thinking what would be the best double bills for Bonds. I'm thinking of an Octopussy Never Say Never Again double bill.
Oh, the kind of duking it out a little bit.
And also a Thunderbolt Never Say Never Again double bill.
Yes. Yes. No, but that's a really good idea to really see the dichotomy between the two. I think there might be a clear winner there, but I don't want to
Yeah.
say.
When I was a kid, the first double bill I saw at the cinema, Bond double bill, was Spy Who Loved Me and Live and Let Die.
Oh.
Just amazing. I mean, just what an incredible double bill, because they're pretty different movies, but they're both so thrilling. I do think we need to see Daniel Craig in his naval uniform.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's just me, but I have a desire to see him in his naval uniform, because Bond never looks more handsome than when he's in his naval uniform.
I was so happy to see the poster and obviously, and Peel do the commando sweater, because to me, that's one of the closest he's ever had to being in a military-like outfit.
Yeah. Have you collected the posters for the release dates that are not actually going to happen?
Yes.
You do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've got standees. I've got even popcorn containers that have all the wrong dates on it.
They'll be rather priced, won't they?
It's fun to watch. Just all the dates go flying by.
Well, it's been lovely talking to you.
Oh, so good talking to you.
I'm happy to talk about James Bond anytime, especially with someone who's I'd say even more passionate than I am, and even more knowledgeable than I am about it. But yeah. It's always a pleasure. There's so much to talk about.
All right, same time next Saturday?
For sure, David. Well, take care. Enjoy Die Another Day.
Thank you. And enjoy Casino Royale, but you will have no trouble doing that.
No, I know. It's pretty perfect, that movie, isn't it?
It is. All right, David. Thank you so much.
Right, take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.